Hey guys, my name is Eric, and today we're going to be talking about 300 blackout systems and how they can be effective. Let's go ahead and roll the intro. Hey guys, thanks for checking out another HatchetCast episode, and today we're going to be talking about the 300 blackout and how it can be effective and some things to think about if you're going to run a 300 blackout. Before we get started, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Also, if you really want to help out the channel, if you get something out of this video or any video that we have on the channel, share it with a friend or a family member. That is a great way to help us boost the channel to be able to get the videos out there more, and is a huge help to the channel and to the community. If you have a 300 blackout, or you have knowledge about it, or you have questions, go to the comment section and continue on the conversation. We love seeing you guys engage in that comment section and spread the knowledge and also help other people out. Today we're going to be going out to the range with Eric and another guy that's out there, and we're going to call him Anthony. So they're going to be doing some stuff out on the range, and once they're done, we're going to come back here to the studio to kind of wrap it all together and also talk about some of the challenges that we experienced when it came to our 300 blackout AR specifically, and how you can either mitigate those problems or think about those things so that way you don't have the same issues that we had when we were running our 300 blackout. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Eric out at the range. All right, guys, so I've got Anthony here on the range with me today, and just for the sake of OPSEC, for what he does, we wanted to make sure that we were taking care of that. So what we're going to be talking today about is he's going to kind of educate us on some of the things that he has experience in when it comes to application of 300 blackout, and why it is such an important and kind of game-changing round for the role when it comes to like up close type of contact or up close shooting, maybe some urban type environments. So we're going to talk about, one, what are some of the differences that you see between 5.56 and 300 blackout, and then also why subgun type weapon systems have been kind of phased out, and have a lot of agencies have gone over to a 300 blackout type round, and then running suppressed and shorter systems and the benefits of those weapon systems today. Anthony, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
So what weapon system are you running for what you do?
So this is a SIG MCX 300 blackout. We've been running for about a year or two now, and just got pretty much all pros for it. I'm very happy we made the switch. We used to have the HK 416, another great gun, but running it suppressed was a real pain with all that gas blowback and all that. With this, it's just an overall pretty awesome gun, and you don't have any of that gas blowback or anything at all.
When you guys were running the HK 416, when you were running unsuppressed, what is the benefit of running suppressed versus unsuppressed in the house?
Just, of course, for the noise, one, and the benefits of having it unsuppressed is definitely the size. Right. With the cannon, you know, it adds that much more length to it. So, you know, going around the corners, you know, and then starting to clear the rooms, it just, the size of it, it just gets too long. And then with this, it's already smaller, and it's an overall great gun. Do you have, whenever you guys are room clearing, like say when you guys were using HK 416s without suppressors, was the concussion something that was kind of annoying after a while? It was very annoying and very loud, and also back then we didn't really have Peltors. Right. Some guys were rocking the little foamies, or we had the old Liberators. Okay. Would that like kind of like rock your senses to a point where, or it was just kind of discombobulating versus running suppressed, you're able to kind of focus more on things? Definitely with the unsuppressed, it's, you know, that noise, all the gas, all this stuff, it will mess with you a little bit, but with the can on it, it's great. Nice. Whenever you guys were talking about, you guys are currently running subs, what kind of grain are you running for your subs? In the beginning here, we, I think when they purchased this, this system, the ammo was kind of we had to buy a lot of bulk.
Right.
And our duty round is a 205 grain, and unfortunately our training round is a 220 grain.
Okay.
And that's all we could really get our hands on at the time through SIG and all that. So there's big differences between the 205 that we run for our duty for when we're actually using them for what we need to use them for, and then training is the 220. It's just, you'll start to see, because we're zeroed at 205, when we use the 220 in training, it's, in my opinion, kind of bad training.
Okay.
If you're past 50, you'll start to see, because we zero at 50 as well, you'll start to see, you know, inaccuracy of where your rounds are going. So typically, I would rather use the same grain for training and also duty, so that you know exactly where your rounds are gonna hit. Just better for the training aspect of it.
Nice. Would you say that, like, I know one of the things that we hear about 300 Blackout is the ability to not over penetrate. Is that something that is maybe something that you would warn against going that route? Or?
I know they say they were worried when we first went to these, hey, it's not gonna penetrate soft armor or penetrate this. In my opinion, it's gonna penetrate. And also, I like to put it to the test. I know they bring out the gelatin and stuff like that. We double test all that stuff. I've seen it go through, you know, drywall and all that stuff into like a cabinet kind of a thing. So typically, I believe it will penetrate. People knocked it in the beginning kind of a thing, like, oh, it's not gonna penetrate this and that, but I have all faith in it. Especially, we're gonna switch over to, I believe it's the 110, 111 grain Hornady round.
Right.
Supersonic. Right now we're running subsonic. So I'm pretty stoked about that. We haven't made the switch yet, but the order's in, and can't wait to see just the difference between the two.
Right. So as far as the difference, you're talking about the accuracy that you get from it?
When we first got the SIG MCX 300 Blackout, actually the first day, I wasn't a fan, because I was so used to the 416, or also my personal guns of the, like, 5.56, 223, all that jazz, because I was almost inducing my own recoil. This thing, in my opinion, has almost little to no recoil. And I know all the other guns also don't either, but I noticed that when I first started shooting, because at that time I never shot really a 300 Blackout before. And then as we went to this, the first day, I remember afterwards, I was like, what's so great about this gun? And then it took me until the second time when I shot it, I was like, wow, I actually really like this a lot. I like it more than the 416, 100%. And I have my personal, like, Daniel defense and stuff, and I'm a big fan of the 300 Blackout now. So
have you heard that the 300 Blackout, I know one of the things that was a big pro for 300 Blackout specifically was the ability to defeat armor, like soft armor. I know, what are your thoughts on that? Because we'll be testing that today. Have you heard that it will defeat if it's subs or supers?
In the beginning, I heard that it wasn't gonna penetrate with subs.
Yeah.
And I would like to see that test. I personally think it will. After shooting this for so long, I haven't shot at any soft armor yet and all that stuff, so I'm pretty excited to actually see for myself instead of just word of mouth for things.
Right. I know now, back in the day, a lot of agencies would run things like the MP5 and those types of 9mm subgun systems. What, in your opinion, is better about the 300 Blackout versus just running a subgun?
I would, if you think about it, you got a MP5 or you got this gun here. Without the cans, they're really not that much different in size. With the 9mm, yeah, it's smaller. You could probably maybe get in a little more, but this weapon system is already small enough. And if you know how to manipulate your rifle, you'll have no issues. Because with this, you could shoot over your shoulder, you could do whatever, you know, point shoot, whatever you need to do. I just would rather have that rifle round than just a 9mm. In case the BG inside or wherever you are, whatever kind of atmosphere you're in, might have soft on, might have, you know, any other type of armor on. And I would rather have one of these with a rifle round than, say, a 9mm.
Right. I know the one thing that's really cool about 300 Blackout from my perspective is I think about it from a prepared citizen aspect. If I'm going to be in a crap hits the fan scenario and I'm really trying to just mitigate my signature and like I'm just trying to get from one place to another, or maybe I have to pick up a family member that's stranded in an area and I don't want to attract a lot of attention, that's where having that 300 Blackout round gives me that capability to kind of defeat maybe higher or harder level targets than I do with, similar to 5.56, it's a rifle caliber round, but in terms of capability to be able to kind of put targets down over just running a 9mm. Obviously for me, I think one of the big disadvantages of 300 Blackout, which is starting to go away, is the availability of rounds. So it's not a very common round. It's becoming more common, but it's not as common as like 9mm, 5.56, 12 gauge, you know, for shotguns. So availability of ammo is going to be a lot more difficult when it comes to that in comparison to 9mm or 5.56. So having that subgun or that 300 Blackout allows you the ability to have a lower signature, almost movie quiet when you're running subs.
I'm glad you brought that up too. Reference back to the ammo part of it, and then I'll get back to the quietness of it. Exactly like you said, that's why in the beginning we had to do 205 and 220 because the ammo was not there. So we had to pretty much get what we could get for the price too. And I know the difference between 5.56 and 300 Blackout, it's a huge price difference.
Right.
Some average for 300 Blackouts might be $1 more, sometimes maybe less. And when you're shooting as much as we do, and it adds up. But they weren't worried about the money. But with that, now it is more common. I've seen a lot more that 300 Blackout is more common to get now. So now you can start, if you want to build a 300 Blackout now, you don't have to worry about so much ammo. It's just a little more expensive than 5.56. Not too much, but with the quietness too, I notice when I shoot suppressed with 5.56, still quite loud or whatever. With the 300 Blackout, we're running the 220 grain for training, and with the can on it, it's quiet. I almost reference it to like a BB gun.
Yeah.
It's that quiet. Like if you shot in your backyard, I don't think anyone's gonna call the cops kind of a thing because it's just super quiet.
Right. Yeah, I think the one thing that's, in my opinion, 300 Blackout really makes its debut when you're running suppressed. Outside of that, it's kind of, you know, you can run supers, you can have obviously a shorter system, but where you're really going to get the most benefit out of that round is it running suppressed, and also you have a heavier weight projectile hitting that target. So for me, I'm running a dual lock 730 cal can, which if you're going to get a suppressor, my first recommendation is always buying a 30 cal can, because you can run 308, you can run 300 Blackout, 5.56, you get a lot of options. And we actually talk about that in one of our other videos that you can guys kind of go check that out. We did a review on the dual lock 7 specifically. But I'm running that on a 6-inch barrel. I have a Ballistic Advantage gas block. It's an older one that I had laying around, and I believe an SLR Works rail that actually had custom cut for this. I'm running a Chore Industries handguard, and then I also have Ballistic Advantage upper overbore systems riser with a dot, and then I have a brace from SB Tactical. So I do like the aggressive Di-Frico grip for that shorter type work, and then I'm running a mod light. But I mean, when you remove the suppressor, what's really crazy is you get to see the overall size of this thing is extremely small. So for example, I will actually, when I transport this, I usually put it into a tennis bag because nobody's gonna steal a tennis racket. Like, that's just the most useless thing to take. So I usually will put this inside of a tennis racket bag or something that's super small, and that way I kind of have the ability to kind of hide that. But the biggest thing I like to use this for is for the ability to lower my signature, use it to get in and out of places really quickly. And then you gotta think, if I have to make a distance shot, we've actually spread or shot supers out to distance of 250 to 300 yards. So it really does add some capability to your toolbox. But it's definitely one of those things that, one of the things I noticed about 300 Blackout, I'm actually curious your opinion on this, is when I'm running subs, I actually will get a lot of unburnt powder that comes back into the chamber, and it's like almost like grain. So you have to kind of maintain that weapon system a little bit more. Have you experienced the unburnt powder with the sub gun, and also have you guys had any malfunction issues that you've seen historically through your gun?
So with this so far, after shooting it for the last year to 2 years, we full auto, you know, semi-auto, all that stuff, we shoot all day long. So cool thing about this is I typically just add oil, and that sucker runs. The only thing you'll find out here inside the chamber and everything here is just little pieces of the brass and stuff will be in there, but it's super easy. Wipe it off, blow it out, whatever you gotta do. And I haven't seen any major malfunctions with the SIG yet. And like I said, I just pretty much, I'll clean it when I know that the can's gonna get caked on there, that's pretty much when I clean it. But other than that, I'm just adding oil, and I just go ahead and shoot, doesn't matter. I haven't had any issues on full auto, and I'm actually very happy and surprised with the full auto on this.
Yeah.
It's super smooth, super fast, handle it perfectly fine. And also with the can on, it's I get no blowback. And I know with the 416, I was like, even with iPro on, I'm like, my eyes are kind of closing sometimes because it was too much
gas.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons we got rid of them, just because we were having more issues with the can on them on the 416s.
Yeah.
And all we did was run them with the can, so we were just running into nothing but issues. So it was time. They were older. It was a great gun though still, but after we made the switch to this, it's been night and day.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I know for me as a southpaw shooter, I shoot left-handed, so whenever I have a gun that's not well regulated or over gas, especially with a suppressor, it literally goes right into my face. So I like having a system that is well regulated where the gas either is minimal or goes away from me. So that would be huge. If I was shooting that 416, I'd
Yeah, with the 416, it's like after a few rounds, you're getting it all in there, and not saying I may have shot this without iPro on.
Yeah.
And no gas.
No issues. Yeah, that's something that like I've also noticed whenever I shoot with an over gas gun, it makes my eyes water, which means I'm closing my eyes and opening and blinking them in the middle of shooting a string of fire, which I honestly would not like. I'd like to have my eyes constantly open, constantly alert, and not have to worry about my eyes burning from that, that gas.
I had that a lot with the 416, but with this, no issues. And then the same thing too is when we run our subsonic, and here there's like the little gas blocker. You can't see it in the video, but we have it plus down.
Right.
And that's for those rounds. And then so you don't have any malfunctions. If it goes to the minus side down, that's when you'll start having malfunctions. And some guys are like, yo, my gun is malfunctioning. But really it's as simple as that. And then now it's running perfect. And another thing about only time we ever had issues with this as well on about a 25-man team, is because of the mags that they were using.
Okay. You want to talk us through on mags that you would recommend for 300 Blackout?
Absolutely. I know other people I've talked to, they have no issues with metal mags, certain P mags, doesn't matter. They have no issues, but with the SIG MCX, I've noticed with metal mags, sometimes just the feeding of the 300 Blackout will cause a malfunction, or even the P mags that we were issued will have issues sometimes. Maybe once here and there, maybe every time, maybe no times at all. Some guys are still rocking what they got issued, just the regular P mag, and they have had no issues. And then I've had guys that had issues. So to take away from that is I bought this same P mag, but it just has the 300 Blackout.
Okay. So
written on there, so it's made for the 300 Blackout round, so it just sits in there a little better. And I've used these ever since I got the gun, and I've had zero issues.
Now, what in terms of malfunctions, are you having like double feeds or failure to extract, or what kind of?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Just tap rack will usually fix it. But other than that, it's just if we can. I've been telling the guys, hey, just break out the credit card a little bit. Maybe get one that has 300 Blackout so it sits better. It's one less thing that can malfunction on your gun in a high stress situation or this or that.
What's the cost difference between 300 Blackout P mags and a standard P mag? Is it about the same?
About the same. Yeah, I think I got these maybe $11.
Oh wow!
Or something like that. Was on sale one time, maybe 15 at the most. I don't remember exactly what I paid, but I would say it's the same. Definitely make sure I separate everything. And yeah, that also helps. It's like, hey, the only thing that goes in here is 300 Blackout.
Yeah.
And then I keep my metal mags and my other P mags, all my 5.56 and
nice.
stuff.
Well, cool. So yeah, we'll go ahead and hit the range. We're actually going to put up some armor. We have we have 4 different soft armor panels that we're going to shoot. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go at the 25. We're going to be shooting these armor panels. And what's really cool about this test is these are old decommissioned panels from an agency, and it's soft armor, so it's not going to be Kevlar plates. It's going to be just soft Kevlar. So we've got a groin plate here. We've got a shoulder plate on each side, and then another groin plate. We don't have any 300 Black supers through our 300 Blackout supers, so we're going to be shooting only subs. And just we're going to kind of check out the penetration. We may actually start moving closer and closer to the targets as we engage. We're going to start at 25 and then start working our way in. So, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So something else that we're going to do is we're also going to chrono each round and just kind of see what that subsonic 300 Blackout round is doing, how fast it's going.
So we're going to be using the 220 grain, shooting at the right groin, soft armor down there. We're going to see what it's going to do.
Dude! Oh! So, all right, here, check this out, Seth. So we got the chrono here. Look how slow this is going. 925.6 FPS. Let's go see. Let's go to shot list. First shot 948.3, 956, below 1,000 feet per second. That's crazy. Dude. No, these are the entry points. Body side. I could feel it. I could feel it in there. So this, here's our 1, 2, 3. We got 3 entries. No exits for standard soft armor with 300 Blackout subs. I mean, it's moving pretty slow.
Yeah.
Like, I was surprised. I don't know why, but for some reason I was like, oh, yeah, because it's rifle cartridge, based on projectile. Actually, yeah, maybe I'll shoot the 205 grain on this, out of this rifle.
Perfect.
And we'll see what happens. All right, so now I'm gonna be doing 205 grain. Hopefully this is probably going a little bit faster. I'm gonna be shooting the far left groin panel. So let's go ahead. Let's see what she does. I'm gonna also chrono it, so we got that data. Ready?
Yep.
Oh,
dude, it completely took it off of the pole. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and shoot the left panel again. It got knocked off the stick because of the amount of energy. Like, there's a lot of energy that's being transferred into that panel. So I'm gonna shoot it one more time on the left side, and then I'm gonna shoot the right one just to see if there's any penetration, because as soon as I shoot that left panel on the ground, it's gonna flip and fall over. So I'm gonna shoot the right one that's on the stick. 205 grain. And so 997. 993, dude, it's not much different in terms of speed. It's still sub 1,000. Let's go ahead and look at this, dude. Look at how much energy is transferred into that. I mean, the ants are even mad about it. Holy smokes! You could even see all that energy. Now, it didn't penetrate. That's what's crazy. Another shot on that panel, didn't penetrate. I'm genuinely curious to see how much frag there is inside of that and what that looks like. But, so no penetration on that panel. The other panel got ripped out as well. So I've got a hit here. Nothing on the back, no penetration. So, really interesting. We're actually gonna shoot, well, maybe we'll just get a little bit closer and see what happens. So we're actually about, literally only 5 feet away. So we're gonna shoot this as fast as we can on really fast semi-automatic. Very controllable when I shoot fast on semi-auto. The plate didn't move very much. Got all those hit center. All right, so now we're finally getting some penetration there, but that is literally pretty much using it on the same spot. So when you get repeated hits in the same area, obviously is when we start to have deficiencies in the armor. Or weak points, but so essentially, shoot fast semi-automatic is kind of viable, but or just shooting a lot. So, I mean, when you do CQB a lot, one of the things that is talked about is obviously don't be skimpy with your rounds, right?
you got a lot of them, so you might as well use them.
Yeah. So just kind of making sure you send some extra tickets to make sure that everything is at least completed. All right. So my trigger finger doesn't work as good as Nick's. I'm gonna do the whole mag. Until it goes empty into this plate. This is a brand new piece of shoulder armor, so let's see how it goes. That went straight through.
Nice. And is that 220 as well?
Yeah.
Nice.
Manage it. All right, so let's see. Got multiple. Wow. That's impressive. So I just kind of mag dumped it.
Yeah.
But let's see what we got. Jeez.
That's wild.
That's impressive. So obviously have a lot of shots in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 rounds. I can literally feel the round right here. Feel that?
Oh yeah, you can see it.
So here's what it's doing when it's hitting tissue or excuse me, soft armor. Look at that. Ooh, that's hot.
Hey. You know what that looks like?
Yeah. That's impressive. What's it look like?
We gotta keep that.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep this one as a souvenir. Yeah. Ah, it's hot.
Let me get a little feel of the hotness. Yeah, it's pretty hot, huh?
We'll actually cut open the other armor pieces and see what's inside. What's your rate of fire when you guys are shooting inside the house?
So, you are counting for every round, so you gotta shoot accurate as you go in. But I would say I'd maybe anywhere between 2 to 5, maybe 3 to 5. So it's not really just one shot. So you're following up with a few more shots.
So it's almost like a bill drill.
Yeah.
On every target. So.
Because if the threat is still a threat, you gotta make sure it's not a threat.
So I mean, now if we look at that, where if somebody's, you're within 7 feet, sometimes 10 feet, and you have that CQB distance and you're doing a bill drill, you have a pretty high success rate of getting some of those rounds through that armor if they're wearing armor.
Absolutely.
Specifically soft armor. But I'm not gonna lie, I thought it wasn't gonna stop it because when we were at 25, it didn't even penetrate. But closing in that distance.
And I thought at 25, I thought it would go right through, but.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, so one thing actually that you had talked about was 300 Blackout mags, proprietary mags. You have better success. When I was running my mag, which is this is Gen 3P mag, not the 300 Blackout designated, I ran into a malfunction. So it was a double feed. So something to think about. Maybe I might start getting some more, maybe like 300 Blackout proprietary mags.
Yeah, give it a try.
It works, but maybe if I want to have a better chance of success and having less malfunctions, it might be worth the investment. So, interesting fact. All right, guys, so 300 Blackout is a really, really good round, especially if you're gonna run it with a suppressor and use subs. There's so much energy coming out of that thing. It's really effective at those closer distances. So, I would definitely recommend this as something that you have in your toolbox. And that's gonna be for you to decide whether you run like a piston type system or run an AR type of 300 Blackout. At the end of the day, what matters is your training. Eventually, you need to make sure that you are putting the investment into yourself because you are the asset. All this other stuff is just a tool that will complement you, the shooter. So make sure that you are training for yourself. And now I'm gonna hand it back to Eric, who's at the studio. All right, hey, welcome back to the studio. And so I have Roy here. I wanted to kind of bring up to him some of the issues that I experienced on the range that were just so frustrating. And the 300 Blackout that I was using on the range with Anthony was a homemade, a DIY AR pistol build. And so, putting this together was something that was a project of mine for a little while, but I ran into so many problems that were frustrating, and I was just mad. Yeah. I was like, yeah. I can't wait to ask Roy, like, what is going on with this? So,
and sometimes it can when you're doing a home build, especially when you're experimenting around in something like this, where we're trying to drop below certain barrel lengths and things like that.
Yeah,
trying to accomplish.
So, kind of give you a little bit of overview on what I'm running. Mm-hmm. I have a 6.5-inch barrel. The bolt carrier group is actually a skeletonized, very lightweight bolt carrier group to be able to allow it to cycle. Because before, with the standard bolt carrier group, it wasn't cycling.
Okay.
So I was running 300 Blackout Magpul mags.
Okay.
But I was having issues with that, so I switched over to P mags. And it started running like a little bit normal, and metal mags was even running, but I could only get about 15 rounds.
Okay.
If I did any more than 15 rounds, it would double feed, failure to extract, extract the shell or strap the brass, but not load a new one.
Okay.
And there's like also the trigger I was running, not resetting. So these were just some of the problems that I was experiencing.
Okay. So we're running a 6.5-inch barrel here, and primarily running it suppressed.
Yeah, only suppressed.
Only suppressed. I'm assuming 220 grain subs out of it.
220 and 205.
Okay, so 220, 205. Was there any difference between the 205 and the 220 as far as which one gave you a little bit better luck?
I feel like the 220 was the biggest issue.
The biggest issue?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was what?
S&B.
S&B, okay. So, one thing that I have noticed with some of the 220 grain ammos that are out there is a lot of inconsistencies where you'll have some 220 grain that are, pushing, 800 feet per second, and some of them that are pushing closer to 1,100 feet per second. So inconsistencies as far as pressure-wise goes. And I think a lot of times when we have these DIY, these at-home builds, especially when we start to try to shrink it on 300 Blackout, when we start to go below that 7.5-inch barrel length, 7.5, 8-inch barrel length, 7.5 and an 8-inch barrel will allow you to run more like a pistol link gas system, okay, is what the 300 Blackout really works best with.
Right.
We start to drop below that, we have to start going to more proprietary type links on our gas systems, and what we end up with the issue is we alleviate basically all the dwell time that we have.
Right.
Okay, so you have no back pressure buildup past the gas block. So that's where you're experiencing with a standard mass bolt carrier group or a carrier, that you're running into those issues and you had to go to that light carrier. Right. You're also running, what is this, the SB Tactical?
Yeah, it's the PDW
yeah,
brace.
PDW brace, which is also running a proprietary buffer system.
Yeah.
Okay, so depending on what this thing is sprung at, I don't know because I haven't opened it up. That could be some of your issues too, why you had to go to that light mass carrier, because they do offer this spring system that's in here at different weights, where you potentially could have stayed with that standard mass carrier versus going to the lightweight carriers. I'm not a super huge fan of using lightweight carriers to fix a problem.
Yeah.
I would prefer to fix it back here. I think typically the lightweight carriers, skeletonized carriers, sometimes cause their own issues in general. But obviously here we're shooting 220 grain, production ammo. Don't know what the velocity was. I'm assuming you didn't chrono
Yeah,
it?
so we did chrono
yeah.
it. So we chronoed at the range, and it was consistently for both. We used Anthony's piston, his MCX, and that was running at 900, and then this one also running about 900.
Running at about 900.
Yeah.
Okay, so which would probably be pretty close to being about right from what I've experienced with S&B out of something like a 5.5, 6-inch barrel, probably around about that 900, which is pretty low pressured.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, adding the suppressor to it is going to give it some back pressure back to us, but these newer modern cans like these, like the Griffins and the Huxworks cans, they do have some of that flow-through technology in them a little bit, or that bleed-through where they bleeding off some of the gas out the front, so you're not really experiencing as much gas back. So what it sounds like, based off of what you were telling me, the ejection pattern is, it's very much around that 4 o'clock, which a lot of times we look at and say that, hey, that's a really soft shooting gun. That's a good ejection pattern.
It did feel soft.
Yeah, I tend to lean a little bit with 300 Blackout, especially with subs, probably getting closer to about that for me, for what I have found in reliability, around about that 2:30 to 3 o'clock. So I feel like you're, I have not shot this gun, guys, so I need to take it out on the range myself and physically shoot it, but I feel like, based off of what you're telling me, that you're slightly under-gassed, and we're trying to make up for that with the low mass carrier, things like that. What I would probably suggest, if we're dead set on sticking with this build and this particular barrel length, and an AR platform, a traditional AR platform like this, is I would probably look at finding a carrier that's probably more efficient. That's not allowing, most likely this carrier is probably allowing a lot of bleed off also, which is another leaking point basically for your gas system. So we don't have a lot of dwell time, so we got a 6.5-inch barrel, so we don't have a ton of dwell time, so we're not building up a ton of back pressure. We have a flow through or bleed through type can, a reduced back pressure type suppressor here, which is not allowing as much gas to come back. So our bolt speed is not really increasing where we kind of need it to in this system to cycle those subs. So I would say that we go, if we're dead set on working with this particular build and trying to solve what some of the issues are, this is where we're probably going to go through. And for you guys that are at home that may be experiencing the same thing, start going through some of your different carriers. The easiest thing for you guys to do, because you don't necessarily have the tools to check for gas runoff, check your gas keys, things like that to make sure everything's in spec, is just to try completely different carriers. Just to toss a whole nother carrier in it, just rotate through. I'm sure you guys have plenty of builds at home. That's the beauty behind 300 Blackout, obviously running the exact same bolt carrier group as a 5.56. So I would run through until you potentially find a carrier that might add a little bit more back pressure to it because it's not bleeding off. You obviously have somewhere along the lines also potentially that gas is probably leaking. So, and that could be within the carrier. Personally, if I'm going to drop below about an 8-inch barrel in 300 Blackout, I'm probably going to lean more towards a piston system gun. And I'm not a huge SIG fan, but I do feel like this is where the SIG Rattler comes into play. We get into that 5.5-inch barrel. So if I'm looking, and I know it's a pricey gun, so we're trying to accomplish a little bit more affordable build here. I tend to lean towards a Rattler. You do have that piston gun. You do have the ability to adjust the gas system on the fly significantly a lot easier than something like this. And then we're not now having to worry about a buffer system back here. Everything's closed into the carrier group and everything. So, and those guns were really designed to shoot subs.
Yeah.
That's what they were intended to build for. So I lean that direction. But back to the drawing board on this, I would say that we go back to some different carriers to see if we can find something that, you know, would alleviate some of that gas pressure. Or, once again, not only just that, but maybe finding a little bit higher pressure subsonic round that's getting closer to about 1,000 feet per second,
okay.
You know, 1050 or something like that. That is the downside to 300 Blackout. There's so many manufacturers that are loading ammo, and the price of it, the beauty behind it is the price is coming down. PSA with AAC, you know, is getting the price down where it's super affordable to shoot. I love 300 Blackout. It's a great round. It's actually a pretty easy load to actually load development yourself for you guys that are in reloading. It's actually very easy to load also at the same time. There's such a wide range as far as pressure-wise goes. It's almost difficult to screw it up unless you're just completely negligent.
Right.
Okay. As long as we're not negligent in our load, it's actually a pretty easy, you know, round to load for, and there's a wide variety of rounds to choose from. Once I find a round in my 300 Blackout that it likes, that's what I bulk buy.
Okay.
So I'll usually buy little bits from here and there. S&B, not bashing S&B or anything like that, but S&B is one of the rounds that I've had the most amount of issues with when it comes to 300 Blackout. Okay, I've actually had pretty good luck out of the AAC stuff. The Remington UMC 220 grain, I've always had really good luck out of it also. And there's a few other manufacturers out there. The S&B does work, but what I find in anything underneath that 8-inch barrel, I'm pretty much having to run it out of something like an MCX or something.
Okay.
That's where I typically did. The MCX that Anthony had, did it run it fine?
He didn't have an issue at all.
He didn't have an issue at all. Yeah. So the MCX, the Rattler, tends to eat that stuff very well, and it actually shoots it quite accurate. So I do have a significant amount of that stuff because it works really, really well in that gun, and it works well in my 8-inch 300 Blackout builds in an AR platform. But as I have tried before in the past, I've tried this pretty much very similar to what you've done here. I've done a 5.5-inch barrel build, and I experienced where the gun was very, very picky in the ammo, and it took me a lot of time tuning the system, finding the right bulk, finding the right carrier group to go with the gas system, almost finding the right suppressor that paired well with it too. I wasn't able to run a bleed off type, a reduced back pressure type can or a flow through can, whatever technology you want to call it. I had to stick with a traditional. Actually, I ran a Yankee Hill.
Dude, I was just about to say resonator. I actually ran a resonator before, and I didn't have that many issues as I did with this.
Yeah, and that's where, because you're increasing that back pressure, and a system. Typically, we're obviously trying to build guns where we're not increasing bolt speed. You know, we're trying to tune our entire system where it's as soft a shooting rifle as we possibly can. But in this situation, we're going the opposite direction. We need to increase some of that bolt speed. And that's where a traditional can may come into play. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit more back in your face. But it is what it is to kind of make it work.
When you were talking about the piston system, about adjusting the gas on the fly, maybe some of the viewers might be saying, well, why can't I just run an adjustable gas system on an AR platform? What are your thoughts on that?
So unless that adjustable gas system has something like a relatively large knob on it, which there are, like the Noveske switch block and a few others that are out there, most of those adjustable gas blocks have little tiny set screws that you have to use an Allen wrench to reach down in there, or something along some other type of tool to adjust that gas system. So I don't find that being very adjustable on the fly. Okay, so if I got lot ammo here and I'm shooting it, and I'm out there on the range or something like that, and then I'm shooting another type of ammo, and the gun's not wanting to cycle properly, I got to go back to my truck, I got to grab out a tool, I got to physically do it. Versus having something that has, that ability, and that's the big thing behind, the piston guns. You have that big knob up there on the front of the gas block that you can kind of click over to run it on that suppressed setting or unsuppressed setting. So these adjustable gas blocks, most of the adjustable gas blocks that are available for a typical AR platform, one of the other failures that I have seen quite often is, okay, well, I get my gun and it gets tuned and I really like it. Well, now we're kind of in an ammo shortage situation where I'm just trying to pick up whatever kind of ammo that I can, and now my gun's not wanting to work with that ammo, and I need to tune that gas system again to make it work with that. and consequently those little set screws and the little ball bearings that are in there, whatever system that they're using to close off that gas port, tends to freeze up. Tends to carbon up at some point in time, and then you can't. So it's just another maintenance point. If you're willing to maintain that and keep it clean, like, hey, I'm the guy that really enjoys cleaning my rifle. That's not me, unfortunately. So if you're the individual that does that, popping your handguard off and maintaining that adjustable gas system, take note how many clicks you were from completely closed out or completely open to in, and then ripping the gun apart and lubing those parts up, cleaning them, make sure that they're not carboning up. It's just another maintenance point. Is it adjustable gas blocks not worth having? For me, they're not worth having because I'm not going to maintain them. But if you're the individual that wants to maintain your stuff a little bit more, then and you enjoy doing that, you enjoy spending time on the bench tinkering around with that stuff, then I would highly suggest. And in this particular system, though, adjustable gas block's not going to help us any. Because we don't need to close the gas off. We need to pick some bolt speed up. So. I know you had said as far as issues with the trigger resetting.
Yeah, so I'm running a CMC 3.5 pound drop-in trigger.
Okay, so and this isn't a hate on CMC. This isn't a hate on any trigger company out there whatsoever. But one of the issues would be is because the gun necessarily not cycling all the way. All right, but something to take into consideration, guys, especially with 300 Blackout, and we're primarily shooting subs. 300 Blackout subs can become very dirty. You end up with some unburnt powder sometimes that kind of drops back down into the chamber. I've also seen where that powder drops down into like the trigger housing. Okay.
Yeah.
Your enclosed case triggers like your CMCs and some of the others, the velocities and all that. This is not a failure point whatsoever, but it is a maintenance point.
Right.
In comparison to like a typical mil-spec trigger, that stuff has somewhere to go and you kind of gets blown out down in the bottom, all the additional carbon back in. All triggers need some type of maintenance, all right? They need some type of lube. But with those closed-in casings that are around them to make it that nice, simple drop-in like that, this is a great trigger. It's got a good feel to it. You can shoot fast with it, things like that. But it tends to hold all that garbage in. So that's another point of maintenance that you're probably going to want to do. You're probably going to want to carry around a can of brake cleaner with you or something like that and blast that thing out every few hundred rounds, especially if you're shooting 300 Blackout suppressed, because it's going to get really dirty.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing that for me, 300 Blackout and the way that I would use it as a tool and the role I'd have it for, it'd be something that I would have it where it was, I don't want to be found if I do get caught in a sticky situation and I need to be quiet and lower my signature while removing a target, I'm going to use 300 Blackout. So it's like, it's absolutely vital that it has to be reliable, because if I have to take that shot, I'm already in a pinch, and now the gun's not working, it's not cycling, and it's causing compounding problems, and that's where I'm like frustrated, because I'm like, this system has to be the way that I was going to use this or have the role of this system. It's absolutely vital that it has to be working. Or in a CQB role where it's like, you can't have malfunctions in that role, I agree.
And 300 Blackout's a great round to do. We got 200 plus grain bullets that have the ability to penetrate soft armor, things like that. So it's a fantastic round. So it carries a lot of energy. So I think 300 Blackout's a perfect build for what you're trying to accomplish with it. Personally, where I would be is I would probably actually just dump this entire build, and go another direction, go more towards a piston gun. I could say this, and it's hard to say this, but I've had incredible amount of luck so far out of the only SIG product, and that is the MCX Rattler. So I would probably lean more towards the Rattler is what I would do. You have that ability, even if it's, if we're shooting that slightly under pressured subs, I can just run it on the unsuppressed setting, where I'm typically running it in a normal, where I would run supers, whatever it may be, or just typical normal, without a can on the front of it, and it'll cycle that stuff with no problem whatsoever. So I would probably lean that direction personally, but for you guys that are out there trying to experiment around and trying to build, by all means, definitely, this is not meant to discourage you from doing it. I highly suggest that you do it, because it teaches you a lot about your system, and sometimes the frustrations that we experience when we're trying to build something in it and it doesn't want to cycle properly, and we're having to invest money in trying different ammos and stuff like that. It's a learning process. Enjoy the journey. The only reason why I know this is because I've went down this road with this build before. So now I know that, hey, for me, it just made more sense once I've tried to attempt building that short platform, that super in-tight vehicle type gun, CQB gun, you know, quiet system. I spent a lot of time experimenting around with the AR platform, traditional gas impingement platform, and it just took a lot to get it working properly.
Yeah.
Once I shrunk below that roughly 7.5 inch in a barrel length. So you guys may not be experiencing that same issue. You may nailed it on the head the first time that you did it, and depending on who made your barrel. I'm not sure who made this barrel here, so I'm completely unaware of who that is. I would have to rip it apart. This could be, I know there's a few companies out there, I do believe, like V7 and stuff like that. Supposedly their 5.5 inch barrel is supposed to be really, really good. I've talked to a lot of guys that are out there running it, and they've had no issues. They have their gas system dialed in. They give you some information. They give you specs as far as what to kind of build off of.
Right.
So I'm sure, guys, that there's probably a great company out there to go with if you want to go that direction and you want to do the research and find it. But once again, like we talk about all the time, is getting out there in the field and physically quality control and testing your stuff and training with it, because that's key. Eric is now experiencing some of these issues. He could have been the guy that just basically built this gun, put it together, and was like, hey, I'm going to put this beside my bed.
Yeah, the home defense rifle.
It's the home defense rifle. You know, I'm going to put it beside my bed. My 300 Blackout's my home defense rifle.
Yeah.
And just left it be.
Yeah.
So getting out there, testing it, enjoying that journey of testing it and trying to figure out what some of the things that you need to fix on it to get it right. But like I said, for me, I'm just probably going to lean more towards a piston system gun. Under that, 8-inch barrel, probably personally about the only manufacturer I go with right now is a SIG MCX. And I know I've said that 100 times already. So I've just had one for now multiple years and have put quite a bit of rounds through it, and it's worked perfectly fine.
Yeah, this wasn't unplanned. I wasn't planning on adding this to the video. It's just something that I'm also learning and experiencing right now. So I was like, hey, this is a great opportunity to talk about this, because I'm sure other people are also experiencing the same.
Eric did this build completely on his own.
Yeah.
With no help, which is great, which is fantastic. And he was experiencing a ton of frustrations while he was out on the range, trying to get some B-roll footage, trying to do some training with it, all of that, and come back and it's like, man, this thing is just driving me crazy.
Yeah.
What's the problem? What can we do here? But yeah, those are just some of the things what Eric is experiencing. I would say, over the past 10 years of, or maybe not 10 years, maybe the past 5 to 6 years of kind of playing around with 300 Blackout heavily. That's one of the things that I've seen. I've also seen a lot of people come through the doors at the shop when I was spending a lot of time working on guns with that very same issue, where they were trying to do very similar builds to this. And it's kind of like taking 5.56 and dropping below a 10.5 inch barrel or 10.3 barrel. You're going to experience the same issues. Opposite direction on that, you're going to increase entirely too much bolt speed.
Yeah.
It's a very violent system. Something we could try doing here, we could try opening up the gas port. So we could go through it and tear it apart and try to open up the gas port. It's just depending on how much time you want to spend with it. So,
right.
So.
Well, I'm about as frustrated enough to just jump it in the freaking trash, but no, I mean, I think the one thing is it's like going and, asking for help and looking for somebody that has more knowledge and learning from them. And that's just something that I was like, I know Roy is going to know about this. So, and that kind of leads me to my next point, which I actually wanted to close you guys out with. And whenever we have a problem and we are looking for help, Jesus calls us to go to him. And the way that we go to him is we do it through prayer. And so I want to read Psalm 141 really quick and just kind of leave that verse with you guys. But I call to you, Lord, come quickly to me. Hear me when I call to you. Hear my prayer, be set before you like incense. May my prayer be set before you like incense. May the lifting up of my hands be like the evening sacrifice. Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Do not let my heart be drawn to what is evil, so that I take part in wicked deeds, along with those who are evil doers who do not let me eat their delicacies. Let a righteous man strike me, that is a kindness. Let him rebuke me, that is an oil on my head. My head will not refuse it, for my prayer will still be against the deeds of evildoers. Their rulers will be thrown down from the cliffs, and the wicked will learn that my words are well spoken. They will say, as one plows and breaks up the earth, so our bones have been scattered at the mouth of the grave. My eyes are fixed on you, sovereign Lord. In you I take refuge. Do not give me over to death. Keep me safe from the traps set by evildoers, from the snares they have laid for me. Let the wicked fall into their own nets while I pass by in safety. You know, as I was out on the range, and you know, one, there's a couple of things that I get out of that. One is ask for help.
Yep.
Pray and give all of your cares and all of your problems and all of those things, your worries and anxieties, give it to the Lord and give it to Him through prayer. You know, I think a lot of times we as men, we want to just hold on to it and try to fix it ourselves.
Yeah, we self-isolate a lot.
Exactly. And then it's like, I could have done that with this build, you know, as an analogy, just taken this and just been frustrated and, you know, and then pretended on video that everything was okay. But I was like, nope, I want to ask for help. And so, you know, God tells us to do the same thing. At the same time, the other thing I get out of this is I had a lot of availability to say some very choice words on the range while I was doing, like, just frustrated.
Yep.
And so God is saying, hey, you know, or David is saying to the Lord, help me to watch what I say. Because the things that we have that come out of our mouth can be very destructive or very productive. And so I just want to leave that with you guys today and let you guys know that if you are interested in, you know, hearing about what salvation is, who Jesus Christ is and what He came to do and how He can bring you hope and freedom from the enslavement of sin, let us know. You know, we definitely are followers of Christ, but at the same time, we're walking that journey, and it's a lifelong journey that we're always striving to, you know, find the Lord and continue to seek comfort in Him. So, guys, thanks again for watching this episode. If you got something out of it, once again, share it with a friend. But make sure you guys go out there, train, and always strive to be the eternal asset. So we'll see you in the next one.